welcome guys.
Hello.
Back to the Talkaholics podcast. We got a really, really special episode today, and she's nervous. So
I'm not nervous. I'm just laughing. I'm trying not to laugh out loud.
Just as regular, it's Razia here, and and we got ourselves a very special guest, a long-time friend of both of ours, way back in high school.
I know.
Who recently, through her public health master's program, went on a very cool solo trip to the home of the Pride Rock, Lion King. What's up? Kenya.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah,
that's so
man.
Cool.
She went all the way to Kenya, and we wanted to welcome her to the Talkaholics podcast.
Yes.
Woo. We'll edit in applause. So we just wanted to firstly welcome to the podcast, but also before we get right into Kenya and talk about all the details, just give us some background as to how that opportunity even started. How the hell did Kenya even begin?
Sure. Well, thanks so much, guys. I'm low-key so honored to be here because your podcast is so cool. How did it happen? So through my program, we have to do a practicum, so kind of like a co-op for 2 terms. So the first one I had done in Toronto in my first year, and the second year I kind of had my eye out for this opportunity for a while. So I knew there was one that was open in the summer, and I don't know, I just really wanted to kind of experience that, and I knew that the skills that I could get in public health were really good too. Yeah. So I kept my eye out for it for a bit. Literally just went to the orientations, applied for it, went for the interview, and then the interview went really well, and then I was okay, now I need to sort things out, and then it kind of just happened really quickly within a month. I think I interviewed in February, and then they were okay, you're leaving in May.
Crazy.
All right, now I gotta tell my parents. Let's see how this is going.
The biggest hurdle of all, right?
But yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah, and just backtrack a little bit. I remember when I first told you, I was Miman and I want you on the podcast. You're Mama, I made it.
Yeah, literally. I was I made it to Iman and Razia's podcast. Oh my God, I don't need. And first of all, we met Rizana together. Yeah. I made it on your podcast. My life is made in 2019.
Yeah, she was Kenya, guys. She's ready. She's done. She's finished her bucket list for this year. 2019 was your year, man.
Halfway, thanks to Razia. But yeah.
No, please. So that's really cool, how quickly it happened. And I remember, every step of the way, all that panic and drama that happened beforehand. But why were you... the lovely drama. But why were you guys there in the first place? Because given that, you have a public health background, healthcare policies and things like that, why was Kenya the destination?
So it's weird because the program, it's called Queen Elizabeth Scholarship, so the destination is not only Kenya. I would probably recommend even anyone listening to keep out for that name. It's discontinued at U of T, but I think it happens at York and stuff too. So it's interesting because it wasn't only people in my master's program that were on this internship. It was also undergraduate students or master's students from other programs. Right. It was basically just kind of I think the goal was to enhance scientific research. So anybody from U of T could apply, and there was different placements. So there was one in India. I think there was one in South Africa, one in Rwanda, but I think the one in Kenya was more specific to public health. So I kind of just obviously applied for that one. Yeah,
that's cool.
What was your question again?
Basically, why were you guys there?
Oh yeah, there you go. That's why I was there.
Literally
So basically, so it was a tie with University of Toronto and University of Nairobi. So everyone had a different project. Yeah. So some people were doing a lot of work, a lot of research within genetic testing.
Okay.
And then my friend and I got really lucky because we were actually placed at this health center called the Fragile Cancer Support Trust. So whereas a lot of my friends were doing remote work from home, we got an opportunity to be at this place every day. Wow. Which was fun because we got to actually interact with people and learn so much and just see things on the front line. So it was fun.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So, we were both thinking about this because, again, Kenya being such a different destination than, what people typically do for co-op or even in their academic studies, right? Once you got there, given, what you knew about Kenya or what most of us know about Kenya on the surface level, what was your first impression of it, given that it's your first time and stuff?
When I landed, what was my first impression?
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of background. Before I went on this trip, I had never left North America, ever.
No way.
I was hoping you'd mention that.
I had never
that's
even...
That's the segue, honey.
Yeah, I had never even gone... I'm from Pakistan. I'd never even been back home. Yeah. The only trips I had made were, LA, Florida, East Coast, West Coast Canada. That was it. Yeah. So it was a bit of a jump. I have this friend who's a mentor of mine. She's low-key my mom. And she was oh my God, what? You're going for 3 months to East Africa and you've never been anywhere before? So I thought it would be a really big adjustment, but I actually surprisingly Didn't find it that difficult at all. My first impression, I think, was just like, because I was so excited, it was just taking it all in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I had, like, I just remember landing and it was dark because we got there at like 9 p.m. I was just like, oh my God, I'm here. Like, I don't remember any particular, like, impression. I just think I was so, like, clouded by excitement 24/7.
Yeah.
That's, like, what it was.
Yeah. And because it was, like, your first solo trip too. I mean, you went with other students, but this is the first time, like, for a long time you were away from, like, home and family and all that stuff. So probably a lot to take in, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when you first arrived, you may not have a, like, specific time that you thought, you know, like, this is a little different, but was there any time during your trip that you were kind of like, whoa, I'm not in North America, or I'm not in Canada?
Yeah.
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 A lot of moments. It's so funny because, like, me and my roommates, like, I'm really lucky. We got along really well. So, like, we would literally sit down in our living room, like, every night and just talk about our day and be like, yo, this was weird, or this was interesting. Like, we just kind of talk about our experiences together. I feel like for me, because, like I said, the excitement was just so, like, grand when I first got there, that everything was so exciting. Like, I was like, this is so cool. Like, I wasn't really faced by a lot of differences, but I think, like, when I reached, like, the 1.5-2 month point, I was like, okay, what's going on here? Because, like, in the beginning, everything was so exciting, and then I think I hit a point where, like, I didn't understand how to navigate a lot of things, and whereas in the beginning it was, like, a challenge and it was exciting, like, maybe at that point I was starting to be like, okay, I'm not North American anymore, I need to figure out how things get done. Particularly, and, like, Razi remembers this moment, because I was, like, messaging her, like, I had a moment where, like, my laptop was stolen, and, like, I had missed my train, and, like, it was just a whole sequence of, like, events back and forth. And that moment, I remember being like, I have no idea what to do. Like, I had lost it in the hospital, but the way things work there is really different. So, like, I reported it, but everyone was like, you know, I don't think you're gonna find it unless you potentially bribe someone. And I was like, okay, but it was just trying to figure out, like, what to do. And then even, like, missing my train, I was like, I don't even know where I am. Like, I don't know how to get to, because I had to meet my friends at the coast, like, the next day. So there was just a lot of moments where I was like, I have no idea, like, what to do, but you just kind of figure it out, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because another thing I was just, like, really quickly thinking about is that, like, I remember on your, like, your Instagram feed, and you probably saw it too, like, all the pictures of, like, you literally next to giraffes and, like, zebras and, like, all the safari stuff trips that you took. Like, how was that? Like, like, even, like, the sunset pictures and things, I was like, that probably in real life, being there probably felt, like, overwhelming.
Honestly, it was so surreal, and I think about it now, and I don't know. I tell my sister all the time, like, I feel like it didn't happen. Like, I came back here, it's like, it was so drastic. Like, you know, at a point where you're like seeing wildlife so up close, and it's so surreal, and then you, like, come back here, and I'm like, did that 3 months actually happen? Like, it's just, it was super surreal. But the safaris were definitely, I realized that could have been a prime answer to, like, when did you realize you were not North America? Oh, when there was a giraffe right in front of me. But interestingly enough, I had a friend message me and be like, are you at African Lion Safari? I was like,
what the hell?
Are you serious? No.
I
was like, no.
Is that what African Lion Safari looks like?
Not at African Lion Safari. But
That's so
yeah,
funny.
I was like, I did not come all the way over here. Anyway, but yeah, the safaris were definitely super fun and interesting. Yeah, but I guess when you're talking about moments where you felt like you were not in North America,
like, was there any culture shock? Which I'm assuming there was some sort of culture shock.
Yeah, you know what's super interesting is, like, I couldn't put my finger on it for a while, but like socially, like, people, like, interact very differently there too, and it was so funny because, like, one of my friends who was also on an exchange in Nairobi, she's from Cameroon originally, and, like, I remember once we were walking to, like, one of my friends had invited us to, like, her grandma's house, so we were, like, taking this walk, like, somewhere in, like, this rural area, and it was, like, uphill, and we were like, anyway, that's kind of, like, setting the stage for our conversation. But I remember her being like, you know, I don't understand why in Canada people just smile at you out of nowhere. Like, why do people smile at you if they don't mean it? And I was like, what? Like, you know how, like, here everyone is very, like, courteous, but almost in a fake way? I hadn't even realized that until, like, I had so many conversations with people that were like, you know, why is everyone so fake in North America? Or, like, I just remember, like, it was so interesting because they're like, you know, over here it's like so easy for us to just be like, hey, how are you? But like, do we actually care like how your day's going?
That's true. It's kind of like you're meant to ask, even though you don't really mean it.
But I think like it was different because I feel like all the interactions there were a lot more like raw and like authentic, and like people are so much more authentic. So I think that in the beginning I was trying to tease out what that difference was, and then when my friend had just said that, she's like, why do people smile at you out of nowhere in North America? Like, I don't understand. I was like, oh, like it's just, I don't know, like that was kind of like the shock of being like, okay, people are more authentic here. And I liked that difference though. Like it was like kind of something I wanted to bring back with me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's cool. And so, was this your first time traveling alone, like in general?
Well, I had gone to California on my own once before, but I was on my own, but like a condition of me going was to like have somebody on the flight with me there and back. So like my roommate, like we were flying together. On the way there, we were flying with a bunch of people that were part of our program. So like I was on my own, but I wouldn't say that it was exactly a solo trip because like luckily we had like 10 people. So in the beginning, whenever we had to do things, it was like all of us would go to the bank together. All of us would like go renew our visas together. So it was like. I wouldn't say I was completely alone, because if I was, it would be a totally different experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there ever a time you had to navigate, like, the space on your own? If you had to,
Yeah, so interestingly enough, it was the day my laptop got stolen. Yeah, because it was, like, the one day that both of my roommates were not there, and I think that everybody else who lived in our, like, apartment complex was, like, traveling elsewhere to, like, different parts in Kenya. One girl had gone to Dubai, which was, like, so interesting. Yeah, it was so cool. It was
you're closer, right? So
it was super cool. It was super cool. She was dope.
I was just like, you're in the anyways.
It was like that moment where I was like, oh crap, like nobody was there and my laptop was gone. I had missed my train, so that was definitely like a learning experience. Yeah, trying to figure out how to navigate it on my own, trying to figure out where the police station was, and like yeah.
The reason I ask is because I've also never done a solo trip, but I've done the thing like when I was in this past summer when I was in Budapest, I traveled alone to meet a friend in Budapest, and so like right away, because she had been living there for a long time, I kind of latched onto her and was like, hey, show me everything, I'm gonna stick by you. But then at some points I had to figure out the space by yourself, and also when you're in a country when you're visibly don't look like everybody else, that can sometimes be difficult. So
for sure,
it's interesting how we have to like learn to navigate and kind of just like push away our insecurities and push away, that discomfort and just go for it.
And there's always just like even like the logistical things like language barrier, like that being a huge difference, and like something like I know Kenya's like primarily Muslim, right?
Actually, no.
No, it's not?
No, when I was in Nairobi, like the city, which was maybe like 20% Muslim, but I had traveled alone to Mombasa to visit a friend who was there, and that is like, I think like probably 70 to 80. I'm just guessing this number, like based on what I saw. But yeah, where I wasn't. No.
Yeah. Well, so things like that, even like cultural differences based on like the religious like majority there like also changes the way that you talk to people and stuff like that. So I don't know if you like, I find that stuff intimidating sometimes when I'm in a completely new space, again like not considering like America, Canada, places in Europe, but like other elsewise you have to be like so like almost extra careful because you're just like, I don't want to offend anybody, I just want to get to A to B,
It's so interesting because like when you mentioned like being someone who's not visibly from there, I found that when I got there were so many like aspects of my identity that I was reflecting on, like my positionality, being a Muslim, being a South Asian, being a student, being Canadian. So luckily, like for some reason it was so weird. Like, there were some moments where people could tell I was not Kenyan, and then other moments where people were just like, yeah, you're Kenyan, you're from Mombasa, which was, like, this area on the coast that was primarily Muslim. So I feel like in some moments, I looked like I could somewhat blend in. If anything, like, wearing my hijab, like a turban, like, actually in Nairobi, that was not normal.
Yeah.
But luckily, I feel like I was kind of able to seem like I fit in some instances, whereas in others, like I totally didn't. English was not a problem.
Yeah, the Muslims speak English, right?
Yeah, in Nairobi, like everyone speaks English. In Mombasa, not so much. Like if I was in the market, I just wouldn't talk, and I would just leave everything up to my friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I reflected so much on like those different aspects of my identity being there, and like even being Canadian, like the fact that I was able to get, actually the process of getting my visa was like actually really weird, but like it, being Canadian, it's something that would have came so easily, whereas I had other friends from like other countries who were trying to go abroad for their practicums, and they were like struggling because they're like, it's going to be really hard for me to get a visa to come here. And I
feel like that's something we definitely take for granted, and I never thought about it until I had to travel places and found that like there was people with certain passports that wouldn't get access to countries, and it wasn't as easy for them to like, you know, have the same experiences as us. So it's definitely a blessing to have a Canadian passport.
Full-on privilege.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. So speaking of experiences and kind of in the same realm, but was there anything that before going to Kenya did anybody like caution you, or were there any stereotypes that were kind of placed on you to make you more cautious going to East Africa? Because I know that it happens sometimes, like even when I went to Europe, my parents were like, Europe, you're gonna be thought you're a terrorist, people are gonna come after you, you know, stuff like that, and that makes you more cautious. But then when you actually get there, you're like, oh, you know, like obviously there's danger wherever you go, but when you get to the place you are, you're like, oh, I didn't really need to worry as much as I thought I was going to have to worry.
Even when people like us go to the U.S., right? Like how many people are scared
people
for
are so
you,
scared to go
right?
to the U.S. and stuff like that, and you're like, wait.
And then you get there and you're like, fine. Like,
exactly. So I think like the first thing that comes to mind is like this one friend who told me, he was like, just to let you know, Nairobi's nickname is Nairobi. So like that was just in my head like as soon as I got there. And it's so funny because like there's this meme of like, I forgot what it was, but it's basically like this meme where like some girl is taking out money from the bank and like her friends are like guarding her, and it's like the things you do for your friends. And I was like, oh my god, that was actually me and my friends the first month in, I was about to say Nairobi. Oh my god. So like I feel like our first couple of weeks there, because of that like stereotype, we were super vigilant, like things that we were carrying, like, you know, who was walking with who, and like what times we were going out. And before I left, we had undergone like this training, like the safety abroad training with part of our university, and they were like, in the beginning you're going to be really vigilant, and then when you get more comfortable, you're going to get to a like this place where you're a little bit too comfortable, but you have to continue to be vigilant. I definitely got to that point, because there are moments where I was like, I'm just gonna go out, I'm gonna go walk to the grocery store at like 10 p.m. Like I was like, I got to a point where I was so comfortable, where clearly like, you know, my laptop also did get stolen, so it was like moments where like, so I came with that stereotype, like was like, not a big deal, totally let go of it, and then had to like obviously return to it and be like, okay, I need to be a little bit more vigilant. But okay.
But well, so on a more personal note, what was it like to live, even though you were with you know, people from your school and stuff like that, what was it like to live on your own for the first time, be so far away from home for like a long period of time? Like, did you feel that you had like a life-changing experience, or any homesickness?
I think it was definitely an experience. I think living on my own made me like so much more reflective and like cognizant of like my habits. Or like I didn't realize that I was like such a structured person until like I got there and I was living with other people, and I was like, so guys, like we're gonna go here on Saturday at like 9 a.m. right, and like we're gonna work like tonight from like 5 to 7 p.m. right. Like I'm like very scheduled, and like Razia's like, I know that. She's just like laughing, but I guess it just makes you mindful of like your habits. Also surprises you with how much you can deal with on your own. What was the second part of the question? I'm so sorry.
So just basically like, were you feeling any homesickness?
Surprisingly, no.
What was different? Because like again, like you just pointed to the fact that you had never left like North America. Essentially, you're going to Kenya out of all places, right? Which isn't like typically like what is considered a vacation destination, even though really like the beaches there are like beautiful, it's stunning, and on top of that, you're not with your family. You're not with like your sister. Usually, you go with family, even if you're going to Cali, right? So what about that was different? Like, because I know, again, like on your day-to-day basis, you had to feed yourself. You had to like, you know, make sure stuff gets done, and you're working there. It's not like you're there for leisure necessarily. Yeah, I
mean, surprisingly, I wasn't too homesick. I guess again, like the excitement, right? Like you're just so excited being there. There were moments like I was there for both Eids, so like I remember Eid al-Fitr, which was like 2 weeks into when I got there, I was like so sad. I was like, I don't need my family right now. And I was like, like I think it was Eid, like Ramadan. Like I was there actually for like the last 10 days, I think. So like those moments, I was feeling really, really homesick, and like, you know, moments also where you're just like, oh my God, I'm really struggling. Like, I just want to talk to my mom. But there was like moments like that too. But
so cute.
for the most part, I think I was okay. Or like even whenever I was cooking, I would literally FaceTime her and be like, okay, what do I do now? And I didn't realize how much I loved Pakistani food until I got there, and that's all that I made because I just needed to fulfill that craving. But yeah, I actually, like, I thought it would be a challenge, but ended up being okay, actually. And I think it was because, luckily, like, I had people there that were such a great support system, and, like, we literally, like, really helped each other out. So it was useful in that regard.
And I just remembered something, too. Not, like, another thing you missed out on was the Rafters thing. I remember you were in Kenya.
Oh, my God!
Yeah.
Don't even get me started.
And then you were like,
God.
Blasi, I'm missing everything. I want to be at the parade.
Oh, my God. I was up. Oh, my God. Okay, first of all, so there was, like, what, 4 or 5 games that I was... Oh, my God. Now I'm, like, triggered. There was, like, 4 games, and I never woke up for any of them because the time difference, it was 8 hours. So it was 4 a.m. our time. I think 2 or 3 games, like, my friends that were, like, we were all living within our apartment complex, like, they would get together and, like, meet up and watch the game together at, like, 4 a.m. I didn't wake up for any of them. I was like, okay, like, not that dedicated. Until, like, the last game, when I was like, this is where we make it or break it. Like, I need to know. And I think that was the day where everyone was just kind of watching it on their own. Mind you, like, maybe TMI, I was also sick. Like, we just came back from a safari, you know, when you're, like, not used to the food. So I was, like, up at, like, 4 a.m., sick, like, kind of like trying not to vomit, but like watching this game so intensely, and my roommates were totally not interested at all. So when we won at 4 a.m., I literally flung their doors open. I'm like, guys, we made history. You need to wake up right now. But yeah, that was definitely a homesick moment because everyone was going crazy.
Yeah,
but that night, we did go out to this place called Carnivore where they like serve things like alligator and zebra and ostrich. We were like, let's go somewhere crazy to celebrate.
Yeah, speaking of food, like what?
Yeah.
Because you're just now touching on that. That's pretty huge. Like, did you try any of those things? Knowing you, both of you are picky eaters.
I'm such a picky eater. I'm already like, no, thank you.
First of all, ostrich tasted weird. I didn't like it. My friends liked it, but
I've never tried that.
I don't know. It was like weirdly. Also, I was sick too, so I was like, I'm not eating anything weird.
Right.
Alligator, I didn't eat because like apparently it's not halal, so I was like, whatever. I'm really not missing out on anything. Not eating alligator or crocodile. I can't remember which one it was. Honestly, I was so boring. I just went with the chicken. I stuck with the chicken and the beef. I tried the ostrich. Just for the sake of saying it. Just for the sake of being like, I tried ostrich, but like, yeah, no.
I guess ostrich, like, it kind of looks like chicken, right? Like,
it was
once
really
it's cooked.
It was really pink.
Oh.
It looked like cold cuts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I wouldn't like that.
I wouldn't eat it. Nope.
I don't know.
I eat raw stuff all the time, but if it's not fish, no.
Yeah, I know. No, it was cooked, but it just like looked really weird. I don't know, whatever.
That's weird.
It was odd. Apparently they like normally serve zebra there, but now it's like illegal to serve zebra.
Like instinct.
Yeah. There's a lot of like
that kind of stuff. That's pretty interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the chance to like interact with like locals and stuff there? Because I find that would be interesting.
So like that's what I was saying before in terms of like I was so lucky that we were actually placed at a health center because like so there was volunteers from the universities that would come there every Tuesday, and like Tuesdays are like so much fun because they were all there, and like I think one of my favorite moments of Kenya, like despite all the safaris and all these big like touristy things, was when my friend Sharon, if you're listening to this, hi Sharon, she invited us to her her aunt's dowry ceremony at her grandmother's house. So it wasn't in Nairobi, it was like in a village outside Nairobi. There were so many things that I probably wouldn't have done if I like did not make friends from Faraja. So like taking things like matatu. So matatu is like a bus there kind of thing.
Cute.
I remember my supervisor beforehand being like, do not take a matatu. They are not regulated. Your insurance will not cover it. But like we were like, yeah, whatever. Like let's just I kind of want to experience this, but I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't gone with my friends. And like things like again, there was the fear of like being pickpocketed while in matatus. So yeah, like taking matatus with them. So we had gone to like her grandmother's house to go to her aunt's dowry ceremony, which honestly felt like I was back home, like at another family party. It was so fun. It was on her grandmother's farm too. So we were looking at like, they had like all these fields, and it was just, honestly, that was probably my favorite moment because we actually got to witness something that was like specific to the culture and
it's
like
traditional.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
And there were so many moments too where they were like, take us around, show us places where we probably wouldn't have gone to on our own.
Yeah.
encouraged me to take bodas, which was fun, like
Which
those
are
motorbikes.
Okay.
That, like, again, people are gonna advise you never to take, but like, yeah, I'm glad I made like a lot of friends there who encouraged me to try and do like more local things, because I don't think my experience would have been the same.
Yeah, I always think like whenever you travel abroad, that's the best way to get to know the place you're in, because who knows it better than the locals themselves, right?
Exactly. I actually wrote a blog piece. It was called like tourism versus travel versus living that local life. Because while I was there, I interacted with the whole idea of tourism and travel so much. Like I remember in anthropology, I took this course called The Anthropology of Tourism, and about how it's like rooted in this exploitative industry. And over there in Nairobi, there's so many expats. There's so many people that are there working for the UN, and so a lot of the tourist stuff there kind of caters to like a Western audience. And in a way, like, you're not really homesick because the malls there are so great, and like the coffee shops are just like Starbucks, so like you fit in very well. But I feel like I really got lost in that tourist trap in my first 1 or 2 months being there. And then when I went to Mombasa to visit my friend who was living there, that's when I was like, okay, I'm doing this wrong. Like I've been going to all of these like very touristy things, and then I guess once you like open yourself up to like living it more locally and like being more immersed in that experience, it was like totally different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. And are there like, because you just mentioned, like, I'm just curious, I'm asking this completely out of the blue, but like, sorry, but just because like I know like with any country that you go to, there's like segmented like cultures, and like there's like there's like the Muslim religious group or whatever, and then there's the more native tribe or whatever to the country, or you know, there's like segments and pockets, and like depending on where you are and what region of that country, it's night and day difference almost. So like was it different talking to some people within like Nairobi like the capital and whatever, where it's more urban and more developed, I guess, and then you're going to Mombasa and it's like completely different like experience, like what's the, purely asking out of curiosity.
Yeah, it was totally different. Mombasa had a completely different vibe than Nairobi. Well, at least maybe I think it was the way I experienced Mombasa, because like I was with a friend who was like living there very locally. Like she was a York student who was doing her thesis project there, but like she had like ties there, like she had a lot of family there and like friends, so she was living a lot more locally. So I guess the way I experienced it was different. Like in the beginning, Nairobi was very like, it was like a city. It was like very commercial, and like we were accessing a lot of those like westernized spaces. So my experience with Mombasa and Nairobi was different. In terms of the groups, it's interesting because there's like a lot of South Asian people in Kenya. So I'm Pakistani, just as a like background. So, but for me it was so, again, I don't want to generalize and make any kind of like generalizable statements, but for me it was so like weird to witness that dynamic, because I thought I would be going there and like potentially meeting like friends who are also South Asian who had lived in Kenya. And I actually had a friend who I knew from UTSC, who I met up with, and it was super great, and he was super great. Yeah, it was a great experience. But like aside from that, I had noticed that there's like a really big divide, and this is like common knowledge. I guess I just only noticed that when I went, between like South Asians and people that are actually local there. So for me, it was really odd to navigate, because it's almost like there's a lot of South Asian people there that kind of live in their own bubble and are almost considered like the elite.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
for me, it was kind of like really weird to like witness and to see. So in terms of like the differences between groups, yeah.
Like there's a certain kind of privilege, like that.
Definitely,
over the rest. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not to say all are. Like I made some friends who were South Asian and like so sweet and so nice, but. Right. It was a weird thing to notice. Like a lot of like the shop owners were like South Asian, or like. Yeah, like the whole history of like them being there too was like kind of reflected in the everyday. Yeah.
No, I was only going to say, I asked that only because I remember when I went to Dubai the last time, it was kind of that experience of like, okay, so you go there knowing you're going to do the touristy things, like see the Burj Al Khalifa or whatever, like the really tall tower there and all these other things. But then you're also considering, I want to talk to the locals there because that's how you access that country. But the thing in Dubai there is that if you're like truly from that country, like your family's history has been from being in Dubai, I don't get the chance to talk to you because like they're considered the elite there, right? If you're truly from Dubai, you're wearing like the sparkly abaya with the Gucci sunglasses. Like I can pinpoint you, but I also can't talk to you. So again, like even when I was there, I was not talking to any of those like locals there. I was talking to people who came there as immigrants to work. Like every single person I was talking to was like, oh, my family's back home, but I'm here to make money. And so it's interesting, like the dynamic of what you consider to want to learn what a country's about, but really it ends up becoming an immigrant story. Like just that I was like really curious about.
Interesting.
But yeah.
I wanted to ask if anybody is listening, if anybody is listening to this podcast
At all,
and they're thinking of visiting Kenya, what would be your top things that you loved about the country that you would, tell them to recommend the country, and what are your, I guess, top tips on how to navigate?
Yeah,
and
space. Not necessarily places too. Like it could be anything.
Yeah, like just in general, from what you've learned in your time there.
Good question. Oh my god, I have to think about what my top. Okay, so a top thing to visit would probably be Masai Mara. I actually didn't even go, but there's like I didn't go, but I was like a big regret. So I would like recommend it to anybody. It's basically like the top safari there. So I went to Amboseli, which was a safari where you could see like Kilimanjaro in the background. So that was super cool. We saw a lot of elephants, but Masai Mara is unique in the sense that like there's a lot of game. Like you can see a lot more lions and cheetahs. And we were there at a time where the Great Migration was happening. So it's when like wildebeests migrate through the Serengeti. There's this scene in Lion King, when like how Mufasa dies with all those wildebeests running, like you literally see that. Like it's like this, I think it's actually considered like a natural wonder. But anyway, like I was there during that time. The timelines and stuff didn't end up like allowing me to go, but if anybody does go, I would definitely recommend Masai Mara. A little bit outside Nairobi, I would recommend Mombasa because it's like such a stark contrast from the actual city, and it's a lot more of a cultural experience. There's a place in Mombasa called Fort Jesus. It's like the port, and it's so interesting because you can see like the history like in the architecture of that area. So there's like a really strong like Portuguese, Omani, Arab history in that area because I think it's like the port, so there was a lot of like travel and trade in that area. So like I just remember being so blown away by that whole like experience in Mombasa because it was so different, the history was so rich. I'm trying to think of anything else that's not so touristy. Oh my god, there was this one place called Hashmi's that had the best, like literally the best food I've ever had in my life. It was like Indian barbecue in Nairobi. Like I dream about it now. It's amazing. It was like the best food I've ever had in my life. That, and then probably Giraffe Center. That was like this place where you could see there was like these giraffes, like it's just you could take pictures with them. Sometimes people kiss them, which I thought was low-key kind of gross, but they do it for the pictures.
No thanks.
There's actually a place beside it called Giraffe Manor, which is like where you can literally stay overnight. It is so bougie.
That's the place where like all the celebrities go, right?
Yes.
And they have breakfast with the giraffes.
And the giraffes are just chilling as you're like reading the paper.
I've heard about that.
So like we looked at it from a
picture.
No idea what the hell this is.
It's so expensive.
I have no idea what the hell
You've
this is.
never heard of this? Ellen went.
It's okay.
Oh my god, so apparently Ellen has a vegan cafe in this place called Karen.
Oh.
Which in Kenya. Yeah, in Kenya. I didn't get a chance to check it out. But Ellen has a vegan cafe in Karen. I wish I had checked that out. But also like I don't really regret because there's other cooler things to do. But like yeah, interesting fact. And apparently Lupita's dad works for the there's something about him like working in Kenya. I forgot what the tie was, but I was on a search to see if Lupita was in Kenya at the time, but she wasn't. I think
I'm surprised you didn't mention Pride Rock. I was like,
oh my god,
yeah!
I knew I was missing something. Actually, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah,
Hell's Gate, which is the place that Lion King was supposed to be based off, was a little bit underwhelming.
Was it?
I still loved it because we were literally biking like beside zebras and giraffes. Like it was so surreal, and I loved it. But I couldn't tell which one was Pride Rock. So low-key,
just a mountain.
Literally, and I would send pictures to my friends and be like, guys, this is Pride Rock, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't really look that cool. Like I don't think I saw what like Pride Rock was actually based off of because there's so many there, and like we didn't have a tour guide for our biking portion.
Okay.
And then we ended up like not being able to see like this gorge area, like the place where like Mufasa died, like this, remember that like really cool swervy place? We had seen a little bit of it. It was a little bit underwhelming. It didn't like fully meet my expectations, but it was still like so amazing. Like I would definitely still recommend Hell's Gate. It was super fun, super tiring. Yeah, that day was interesting. I remember we had come back. We went with a local tour company, and so we were on the way back, and we were like so tired on the bus, and like we got into an accident on the way back.
Oh my god!
It was just such an eventful day. Like I think our our truck like hit a matatu. You know those moments where you're so tired and then something happens and you're like, oh my god, like, are you serious right now? I don't know, I just had that random flashback. But yeah.
No, and I know one thing right before you get to your tips that you mentioned. Kenyan music. Somebody has a full playlist full of them now. Like,
yeah. So my friends there were like, I love them so much. Anyway, a lot of them were musicians. So on Tuesdays when they would come to Faraja, like a lot of them would just like pull out their guitars or like just start singing. And like whenever like we would have parties at my manager's house, like everyone would just start getting up and like dancing. And like this one day we had like our go away thing. One of our supervisors like held a party for us at our manager's house, and like our friends literally just sat us down like in front of their laptop and they're like, okay, these are the top Kenyan hits, and they're like teaching us like all these dance moves, and like honestly that was like probably one of my favorite parts too. And I still have my playlist and I still listen to it and I still reminisce. Yeah,
that's the best.
Thank you, Jude.
Yeah. So you might want to.
What are your top tips? For like if for someone who's not from Kenya that wants to travel, wants to navigate, what are your top tips?
Probably to like learn a little bit of Swahili before you go, even if you're in Nairobi, like just to know like some of the basics. I was so surprised by the fact that I remember I was talking to one security guard at the hospital, and I had literally just said like mambo or jambo, which means hi, and I went through and he was like, why are you going with the Canadian students? You're Kenyan. And I'm like, no, I'm with them. And he's like, no, but you said mambo. And I'm like, anybody can say mambo. Like, I don't know. I think just learning the language will give you like a lot of leverage. Just go like learning basic Swahili. Another thing that like me and my roommates would often laugh about, and one thing that one of them particularly said that made me laugh so hard was like, she was like, nothing is free in Nairobi. So just be prepared to like, there's moments where like people will help you, or like, you know, people will like assist you with things. Just always have a few shillings with you, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, nothing's free. There were moments like at my airport, people would be like, we'll help you. And my roommate would be like, no, that means you have to pay them. They're just coming and they're trying to get you to like, you know, make money. So that was something that I always remembered. And I think my last one would be like, try to live that local experience. Like I know it's harder when you're like going for tourist purposes, or if you're only going to be there for a short period of time. Like I was lucky in the sense that I was there for like 3 months, so I could really build connections and friendships. But like try to do things the non-traditional way, and like try to live that local experience, because it's like very different.
I don't know if like I don't know how we're doing for time, but in terms of like, I guess just to like, since you're like reflecting on your trip right now, and it's been some time, so I think like you're just pulling back on memories and stuff.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Hell's Gate. You had to remind me.
Take out all those things away. Is there like one particular experience that kind of summarized your trip in terms of like, okay, that was what Kenya was about? Like when I look back on Kenya, this is what I'm gonna remember, because this is what it like at this time, at this age that I'm at, like this is what it meant to me. Rumaisa's like, no.
I'm literally running through like month 1, month 2, month 3 in my head right now, trying to see if there was one moment.
Well, I feel like, or like a takeaway. It doesn't have to be a specific moment in time, because like I feel like we come back from trips often saying, like you were saying earlier, like how you're like, okay, I learned by the second month that I was in there, like what travel really means, right? It is to talk to people directly who are there. And I know like for me, sometimes when I come back from trips is when I realize, oh wait, actually, like especially coming back from trips in the US, no offense, like I'm like, oh shoot, we actually have a lot of great things going for us here, that like in terms of feeling safe, or you know, the fact that there's a lot of halal food here, great privilege, you know, and stuff like that. So just something like,
you know what it would be? I think it would be this one time we were at a party at my manager's house, and it was like all of our work friends, and it was the same day that we had gone to like the commissioner's house, the commissioner of Canada, which was like a very absurd experience, and then we had gone to like my manager's house, and it was I don't think that was a go away party. I think it was a go away party for the volunteers that were working at the health center. And I just remember like being so happy that I had like built so many like good friendships in the country, and like just felt so fulfilled, and like just so happy to have had that experience, because it was just so much fun. We were there like pretty late. That was the day that they were like teaching us Kenyan dances, and I think that was probably my one takeaway moment, because I remember really enjoying myself that night. And we weren't on a safari, we weren't like at a mall, we were literally just in his backyard, like around a bonfire, like just chilling.
Yeah.
I think that was probably my favorite. And I'm getting so sad remembering it. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes the connections we make when we travel, like with the people, whether they're locals or not, like just meeting new people and being in a new space, can connect people in like a whole different way. And like sometimes those are like the best memories you have, because you can always refer back. Like now you'll have friends in Kenya, so if anytime you want to go back to Kenya, you'll be like, hey girl, I know all these people here. Like, I can just go back and it's nice to have international networks, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. And even like you were saying, even if it's not with people that are local, like I think my other really memorable experience was when we were at Diani Beach, and this was with my friends from U of T. And there was one night we had a villa, and like we were just all staying up till like 1 or 2, just chilling outside on the porch, and like that was probably one of my favorite memories too, because it was like all of us U of T students just chilling and like having a really good time. Just having like deep conversations, enjoying that whole beach atmosphere. So yeah, that was probably one of my favorites too.
Yeah, I would definitely say like, because now you have a group of people who have the shared experience, right? So now when you want to reminisce about Kenya, you can just go be like, guys, remember when all this happened? And everybody can understand your.
I sometimes like to say shared trauma, but shared trauma.
That's awesome. Okay, I think that was a great discussion about Kenya, kind of full circle of information. But just before we wrap up, we want to give you like a chance to plug yourself and mention anything like where you are at on social media, anything you want to mention in terms of
plug yourself.
What you're doing.
Interesting.
What's Rumaisa about? What's she doing?
Not really an influencer, but okay. I don't know. I guess you can follow me at _Rumaisa, RUMAISAA. Currently in the process of potentially starting up a blog, but it's been a process. Like I'm still looking at the things that I've written, and you know when you have things out there and you're like, you want to make sure that it's perfect before you put it out there, and you want to make sure you have enough content. So that's something to potentially look out for. I guess I'll share the URL when it actually does launch. But,
and whenever we find out, we'll put it out there on our
absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories and experiences with us. It was great having you on the podcast.
Thanks, you guys. Like I said, I made it in life on your podcast. So.
Oh my god! All right, awesome, guys. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. Sorry.
We always say this. It's like no one's watching.
No one's watching me in my like pajamas right
now. If you guys have any comments to give us, please leave them down on YouTube. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. We have a Gmail address as always, Instagram,
Twitter,
all those fun places. And if you have guys want to ask Rumaisa any questions, super available. If you have your own Kenya stories you want to share, super ready for that.
Cool.
And
we'll talk to you guys on the next one.